That and I think sometimes, like a jilted lover, the gaming community feels like they have been forgotten, or they feel like as though they, somebody is going after money instead of what they feel. And that may be why the gaming community is so loud and forceful with certain opinions on things, whether or not they're right or not.
So that's a great segue. Let's move into the main topic of conversation, which is Cyberpunk 2077. And I think I'm gonna name this episode "To Third Person or First Person? That is the question."
All right.
I think
let's do it.
That's a good one. So you watched my video. For those that haven't watched it, it's on youtube.com/WiseDrums. It's labeled "Why I May Not Buy Cyberpunk 2077 on Day 1. Now, I probably still will buy the game because I love me some CD Projekt Red, and they have never done me wrong. Ever. So yeah. I owe it to them to at least buy the game at some point. However,
yes,
in my video, I do describe why certain people would go, first person, I don't really like first person games. I'm a little scared here. And so people would voice those opinions on Reddit and Twitter, sometimes forcefully. Well, a lot forcefully.
Most of the time forcefully.
and then arguments happen. Like that one argument, I can't remember what website we were. I sent you that link.
Dude, we were ripping on these people on a forum who were because basically it had been announced, or it had been revealed that their new, the people that made The Witcher 3, which was such a great third person game, we're going to make this new game, Cyberpunk 2077, and it was going to be all first person. And you would have thought that you would have thought that Mountain Dew was getting discontinued for all of the angry video gamers out there shaking their Cheeto dust covered hands. And we did. Shane showed me some stuff that people were saying on the forum, and it was I was just absolutely amazed. Even one guy was like a go-between, and he was like, I just want to know, if you guys care this much about a video game, how do you handle actual real dilemmas in real life?
Oh man.
And I found myself asking the same question. But that was the thrust, I think, of Shane's video was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
Oh, okay.
We had such great potential for another Witcher-like game, but putting it in first person, which I know that you personally don't like, that, almost anything in first person, you're like, it cuts me out or whatever. So there's like somebody being forgotten or disenfranchised.
So let me try to break this down for people who are already screaming at me for voicing my opinion on first person games. I think first person games are great, and I think if you love them, go for it. And a lot of my friends are way into first person games, and I used to play them all the time with my friends, so I get it, man. I get it. But when I'm playing first person games in a single player experience, I somehow get disconnected or not immersed after a while. I'll start to play it, and then I'm like, there's something about this perspective that that doesn't jive with me. And it
something
might be
about maybe the camera facing away from the main character the whole time is like the meanness isn't there, because when I can see my character. Wait, well, I don't want to get into your head. Just explain.
Well, you're on the right track a little bit. So what my thoughts are, and the reason why I'm uncomfortable with playing first-person perspective games, is that a lot of people think that the first person is more immersive, and you can definitely make an argument for that. However, I feel for some people like myself get cut out because my brain is telling me, oh, we're going forward, oh, we're going to the right, oh, we're going to the left, but it's not happening, it's not connecting in my mind because all my other senses aren't being activated. So, because a lot of people, like say that, oh, it's immersive, you're seeing through the character's eyes. Like, yeah, you're seeing through the character's eyes, but you don't have peripheral vision. You aren't using the when you walk forward, the wind is hitting your face. You can feel the steps that you're taking on the ground. When you get hit, you get hit in the face, you can feel it, So
first person is such a poor facsimile of reality, it's not a good idea to say that it's immersive any more than third person. Is that what you mean?
Yes, because you're sort of seeing, like, people say you're seeing through the character's eyes, but you're really not. You're seeing through the character's box. It's a box. It's like you're seeing through a TV, really. I don't know. Other people can be immersed in those kinds of games because they can do that. But with a third person perspective, it kind of maybe it fills in the gap of those other senses, because I can sort of imagine the wind blowing on my character's face as his hair is moving, or if he's wearing a coat, his coat is blowing in the wind. And I know these are very what's the word I'm looking for? Aesthetic things. But that is a factor, especially in role-playing games, because when you create a character, and this has been an argument that's been going on in all the forums, which it's a valid argument, because modern RPGs for the longest time are vastly favoring a camera that is focused on your character 90% of the time. Isometric views, third person, Final Fantasy, JRPGs, all the JRPGs are in some form seeing your character because there's animation involved. And so the developers want you to look at this character and go, look what we drew. We drew this for you. Okay, so enjoy it, you fucks. Yeah. So, I don't know. But yeah, so I kind of started rambling there for a second, but that's sort of
I'm really glad that you brought up about the immersion factor, and you really put it in a way that I never considered before, how a first person perspective can actually be more constrictive and you kind of feel less in control, so to speak. And I'm really glad that you put it that way. I just want to know, I think maybe somebody might come along, that is skeptical like myself and say what he really wants, even though he's making up all these other excuses, what he really wants is for the game to be Witcher in space. Witcher 4, Witcher goes to space. And that's what he really wants.
There was a comment on Reddit that summed up third person quite pretty good. And I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Let's hear it.
So he goes, I think it's a he or she. I apologize. I don't mean to misgender you.
We kind of always assume he on Reddit. We always assume mid-20s, angry about certain political... Okay, go ahead.
He goes, first person, if anything, is a handicap. It limits your sight, movements, etc. in a way that is exclusive to video games. In real life, your other senses help you be more aware of your surroundings beyond your field of view. You can do actions independent of your vision. In a game, you have none of that to help you. When you play as a character in first person, you don't see the nuances in the way they walk and animate. A third person game allows the character to show their personality and their movement. Take Watch Dogs, for example. Aiden's movements are some of the most fluid and interesting in a while. His dash is very aggressive, and his coat sways with his momentum. I can extrapolate part of his character through his movements, despite not hearing much of his dialogue or seeing his motivations. I can't do that with most first-person characters. Take Corvo from Dishonored, for example. The vast majority of his personality is told to him through other characters. You're kind, but vengeful. Only because the story said so, not because your actions were visibly showing them. Link from every Zelda game is another great example of how the personality of the protagonist is shown, not told. Wind Waker being the best example, with an art style being extremely expressive. My point is, first person is far more limiting than third person. It's limiting in ways that affect the player's perception of character as well as gameplay. I feel in the vast majority of first person games, your character might as well not be there. You're an observer looking through the window. The distinction is that the third person game has you observing the character in his environment. And the gameplay treats it as if the character belongs in the world and is aware of his environment. Many first-person games feel disjointed because the character is treated as an outsider to the world merely as a consequence of the limiting camera view. And I don't want to say this person's name and put him out there on the internet, but that was great. I think that summed it up, my reasoning why I like third-person games more than first-person games.
Yeah, that's a good summary, I think, of some of the things that we've talked about. Kind of the limiting nature of it. But I think to speak to that, I would say that what he described mostly was how it is more difficult to tell a good story in first person, and he had really hit the nail on the head that in first person, especially if you have a silent protagonist, as Corvo pretty much was, I know that they do that so that you can project your own kind of like thoughts and feelings onto them, but it makes it so that everything is reactionary. And even in Half-Life 2, it's like the silent protagonist is very loudly silent. He's almost like, it's almost very disbelievable. And I feel this way about the Zelda games too. It's unbelievable that you would walk around and everyone would just shout at you, continuing the story, using you and like just borrowing you while you're there. Hey, now you're here. Let's go this way. Like that doesn't really, it is disengaging. But, however, even though it is harder to tell a good narrative that way and it's harder to tell a good story that way, that says nothing about making the gameplay worse, because Borderlands was so much fun. It was fun. It wasn't about the story. And other, kind of first-person shooter, we love GoldenEye 007 for all of its faults. We love GoldenEye 64 because it was so much fun and it was a great game. And it didn't really matter in that time how limited we were, because the fun was limitless, if that makes any sense.
That makes complete sense. Absolutely.
So I if there's one company, because the thing I think that separated Witcher 3 the most from any other game made up until that point, and insofar as I can tell, other companies have not caught up to them, was depth of character. Was like these really, really multi-dimensional characters that you interacted with. All of them had a mother and father, all of them had children, all of them had something they loved, something they feared, something they hated. They all had a dream. The decisions that you made were never clear cut with them. Some of them hated you for doing the right thing, some of them loved you for doing the wrong thing. And it was so real and so alive. I've never played a game with more living characters in a living world than that one. Because in other games, even in a Zelda game, as great as they are, a character, an NPC, is just standing there, and maybe they're an angry old man because they don't have juniper berries, and then you bring them juniper berries and they're happy. And that's the extent of their character, is either angry old man or happy. And it wasn't like that at all with The Witcher 3. So if there's one studio that I trust to overcome those difficulties that come with building a character, because they also made one of the most memorable and fun protagonists to be Geralt, it's CD Projekt Red. And so I see so much potential here. Where you see limits being put on them, I see potential to blow us all away.
Yeah, I'm kind of saying my disappointment, but let me just say something positive about all this is like, it is, given their incredibly great track record of making just great single player experiences, or just the best single player experiences. Let's not pigeon foot anyway.
That is an expression that I am not familiar with. Perhaps it is a national
I was trying to find an expression. I couldn't find it. But
let's not pigeon foot.
There's a 99% chance that they are going to change the role playing game experience through a first person lens with this game. Much like in the same way.
I would love for that to happen.